Kainga Ora has total assets of $45 billion and annual expenditure of $2.5 billion, but its debt grew from $2.7 billion in 2018 to $12.3 billion in June last year, and is forecast to almost double that in 4 years' time.
So maybe what we've got you here, Kieran, explain that to us. It's gone up 10 billion over 6 years, and then going to be another, then it's going to double in the next 4 years because
there's a massive figure missing in this graphic, and that's what the total assets were in 2018. So you got 3 at the bottom there, and you've only got 2 at the top. And if they had total assets in 2018, it would tell the complete picture, because debt has grown, but so too have the assets. And that 12.3 billion is roughly a quarter of the total assets. If we look back to the Housing Corporation back in the 80s and 90s, they were leveraging at 80% debt to equity. So actually, when you consider in 2018, when New Zealand Housing was simply a body that National had stripped down, that was transferring houses from the state to community housing organisations or selling them, it's gone from that to an organisation that has $45 billion of assets, that has created 14,000 public houses alongside community housing providers, and out of that has $12.3 billion of debt. So there's the context there, which I think is really important to understand the full picture.
Do we have any idea, or do you know the numbers for 2018? What the how much was the asset value of Kainga Ora?
As I was screaming out for some context there, I was thinking, God, I really wish I had that number on me.
What about projecting when we have 23 billion? Obviously, it's because houses are being built and properties are being built, and that costs money. Is there any projection for the 23 billion? Once it's 23, is it going to therefore be $90 billion worth of assets? Is it going to double and double? Or?
It's projected to peak within a few years, and then the relative scale of the assets to the debt will mean that debt will start to reduce. Now, I know that this is a long way away, but we're talking about 70-year assets here. By 2060, there will be over $250 billion of assets there and $9 billion debt. So there's the trajectory. So you can draw the lines between now and 2060. This is as it should be when you're considering a government department that is only a matter of years old and was required to hit the ground running right from the get-go. It would be inaccurate to say that they started from a standing footing, because actually they started behind the starting line, because in the 9 years of National, they ended up with 1,500 fewer houses than what they started on. And so not only did we have to try and fill that void before we built some houses, we also had to maintain the ones that they neglected over that 9-year period. So I'm afraid this just doesn't quite tell the full story.
Yeah, and speaking of the full story, because we have the smartest viewers in New Zealand, Peter's just come up saying the 2018-2019 annual report says assets of 28.6 billion. So
thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
So in other words, we've now got 45 billion. We had 28 billion. So yeah, I mean, I know this is oversimplification and some people shouldn't do this, but if I had $1 million worth of debt on $2 million worth of property, and I doubled it to $2 million worth of debt, but I had $50 million worth of property, it's not just about that number, is it? About what you're getting for it and what the equity you have and whatever it is, the assets you have for it as well.
I'd like to think that a future government would never sell down that asset, but what it means is that the ability to be able to leverage that in future to then build more houses is far greater. And so, I'm sure we hear it all the time. I certainly do, by those that might not be completely engaged in politics will say, oh, there's not much difference between National and Labor. Well, I would argue that in workplace relations and in housing, you've got two prime examples where there are gulfs between the two.